All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Erin, and I am on the marketing team here at ProsperWorks. And today we're going to be covering security and how ProsperWorks is keeping your data safe. So we know a lot of you on the line are probably ProsperWorks customers, so you're really familiar with what we are doing here. But for those of you who are new to ProsperWorks and kind of just exploring who we are as a company, we are a CRM that actually works for you. And this to us means it's a system that allows you to build long-lasting relationships and focus on actually growing your business as opposed to time-wasting things like manual data entry. We do this by automating tasks and, like I said, taking away that data entry, a lot of the manual contact input, email ingestion, that sort of thing. This allows you to build and streamline a repeatable process so that your team can focus again on growing your business and not worrying about the nuts and bolts. This also provides you visibility and analytics into activity that your team is doing and gives you an accurate sense of the health of your business. We're also built for and recommended by Google. So for G Suite users, we are an incredibly easy to use and intuitive system. And we are working the way you work as opposed to making you work into our workflow. I am joined today by two of our security experts here at ProsperWorks. I have Isaac Bentley, who is our Director of Operations. He is our Security Program Manager here at ProsperWorks, and he has 18 years of building scaled production infrastructure experience under his belt. And these have been used by customers such as Walmart, Sprint, US Bank, and Capital One. And fun fact about Isaac, on his own volition for fun, he went and got FEMA disaster management trained. I'm also joined by Kelly Cheng, who is our Chief Technology Officer. He is one of our co-founders here at ProsperWorks, and he has 16 years of product development experience building a whole host of different products. And fun fact about Kelly is that he doesn't like raw vegetables, so you will never catch him eating carrots and hummus here at the office. And now kind of what you guys want to know is what we are going to be talking about here today. We think this list of things is, if you're already using us as a CRM provider, these are kind of the core areas of where you should focus your security attention. And if you're not using a CRM provider, or if you are using a different CRM provider, this is kind of your checklist of what should you actually care about when you're evaluating the security of a system. So we'll be defining, what does data security actually mean to ProsperWorks? How you can depend on our system, how we're actually protecting your data. When using our system, what internal security controls you have around your data. And then as well as the third-party verifications and certifications that we have so that you're not just taking our word for it. And we are going to hold all questions until the very end, but there is a questions panel at the bottom of your screen where you can input questions, and we will get through as many of those as possible at the very end. And now I am going to hand it off to Isaac to talk about what security actually means to a SaaS company like ProsperWorks.
Hello, I am really excited to talk about our security posture here at ProsperWorks. One of the key items that I think is important to really take away from this today is I feel like security needs to be a top-down management strategy. It's not just technical implementation, but how the company operates. It needs to be a core function. We have narrowed down to 3 ways that will make a comprehensive security strategy that is not going to lose key elements that is going to be critical. Prevention. Again, focusing on technology alone to address security risks is not enough. The human factor will always remain for the security professional and for the end user the weakest link in relation to overall security. Effectively managing a security risk means putting in the right type of governance, supporting processes, and training along with along with the right technology. And we must have that coupled with the regular review of our security program. Another core is detection. We want to use monitoring tools to detect irregular access or usage of our services or your data. And that will be used to define scope of impact if there is an issue, so we can have the right type of response. Focusing on response, I think, is another critical thing that I think a lot of security programs tend to miss. Having a tested and rehearsed and documented incident response plan will minimize our loss and resolve any identified vulnerabilities.
Hi folks, this is Kelly, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit now about ProsperWorks dependability and availability. And we define this as the ability for our customers to gain value from our service reliably and consistently over time. And the first thing we can talk about is our secure data centers. We host virtually all of our systems on AWS, which is a web hosting service provided by Amazon. They host a variety of other services, including, to a large part, Netflix, and pretty much virtually any cloud or enterprise service probably created in the last 5 to 10 years. We use Amazon because it offers us a couple of things that we really enjoy, including multiple availability zones. And what that means is you could have a data center in Virginia, and you can have a data center in, say, Colorado or Nevada. When one of them goes down, we want to make sure that ProsperWorks is still up. And the use of multiple availability zones means that if any one portion of a data center suffers a power outage, that we have data center capacity somewhere else, so that we're not suffering from a single point of risk. One of the other things we do with this is to make sure that we have failover functionality. And this is the idea that if we have a critical system that we depend on to provide the ProsperWorks service, that we keep a copy of that running and ready to go if the first one were to go down. They call this a failover because when the first one that we are currently using suffers an issue, we can fail over and start using the secondary immediately. This is pretty common in a fair number of database systems, and we use that pretty much for our database systems as well. We also keep backups of the data that we think is probably the most critical asset for what ProsperWorks manages. Backups give us the ability to recover from disaster scenarios. So you could imagine that you have data on your hard drive, and your hard drive decides to someone spills water on it. If someone were to metaphorically spill water on our database, we want to make sure that we have a backup so that we recover, and we keep those backups at high degree of fidelity for the last 10 days, meaning that we can access the data how it looked up to 10 days ago, or 9 days ago, or 5 days ago. This gives us a lot of flexibility in recovering any data that may have been inadvertently lost through some sort of horrific accident, which doesn't happen, but it's good to know it's there. And disaster recovery is the last component of our availability. In general, catastrophic incidents don't occur. But if they do, we practice how to recover from those disastrous scenarios to make sure that if it happens, we restore ProsperWorks service promptly with minimal interruption. When there's a critical issue, there is sometimes some downtime, but as long as we recover it quickly, we think that it's the best we can do to try to minimize that risk.
How do we protect our data? So earlier, I was saying how we have a management strategy to have that we have prevention, detection, and response. Now we're going to talk about a little bit more into the actual details. Data security training, I believe, should be first and foremost. Again, the human factor is going to be the most important aspect, and this will allow our employees to be security aware through our security awareness training, and also for various roles like engineers, security personnel, to have respective training in those areas. We also do vulnerability testing. So we will scan our various services and hopefully identify anything that we might be vulnerable in, and so we can track it and remediate that as quickly as possible. So that is a proactive stance. Data encryption is, as you know, a kind of a core tenet when it comes to security. You hear data encryption, but I think the reason why is we want to limit the scope of access to our system and to your data from snooping or any other type of unauthorized access. User access management is another common way to reduce risk. We use a single sign-on user management system here that implements role-based access. So that is used to regulate and to control who has access to what systems based off of their job role at that current moment. And that is going to be coupled with two-factor authentication. So that will give us greater confidence that our logins are not being shared or they have not been likely compromised. Finally, when it comes to user management, is we want to regularly review access. So once access has been granted, it's not just a one-time deal. We want to make sure that if someone has access, it is the right level and the access is current.
Next up is some of the ProsperWorks features and internal capabilities that we offer to grant you, the user and the administrator, a confidence that you can control who sees the data that you've entered into the CRM. The first and probably most important capability we offer is what we call team permission and visibility. This is a feature within ProsperWorks that allows the administrator to configure different groups that have access to different parts of the application. So I think a classic scenario might be that you have a group of people who focuses on leads, and you can tell ProsperWorks, I want these 5 employees to only be able to look at leads, create leads, and convert leads. Whereas you have a different team of people who might look at contacts and opportunities, and you don't want them taking a look at leads. This allows you to control who has access to what piece of information, and it also kind of encourages proper behavior so that people don't go muddling around accidentally in areas where they're probably not trained. We also offer read-only fields so that administrators can control some fields exclusively by preventing other folks from editing them. You might have some fields that are very, very sensitive. For example, I don't know, some specific order ID or something like that. And you don't want most folks in your company to edit those. You can control that and lock it down so that only admins can edit those. We also have the ability to set required fields. While this isn't necessarily security related, it is related to our field management. Required fields force customers who are entering data for a record to populate certain fields. This makes it so that you can guarantee data integrity, which actually helps a lot if you handle upfront so that your reporting is more accurate downstream. And one of the other things we do is control how passwords are interpreted. By this, I mean, if you attempt to log into ProsperWorks with an incorrect password multiple times, we'll actually freeze that account from login for a period of time. And the reason we do that is it's actually pretty easy to create computer software programs that will guess at people's passwords, but they depend on the idea that you can guess really, really quickly over a short period of time so that you can gain access to an account. If you freeze out users periodically after failed attempts, it really stifles this approach. So it's really to protect your account against nefarious agents who might try to gain access.
Certifications. I like to think of it as a certification as a trust but verify. So we want you to trust us, but we also want you to verify us. So we have third-party organizations, say SOC 2, that verifies us through an independent third party. So this is a very common certification when it comes to SaaS service providers like ourselves. So they are going to review our internal IT security controls for security, availability, and confidentiality to ensure that they match or exceed industry best standards or practices. And since it's not just a one-time deal, we have an audit period. We do this every year. So as we get audited, we're going to use the latest best practices, not something that was best practice 10 years ago. And we also have GDPR regulations and compliances that we have to abide by. Any organization or entity that has access to European citizen data, even though you might be in the United States or any other country around the world, still has to abide by this. So we are fully GDPR compliant. We do this by using with the Privacy Shield framework to ensure that user privacy is being upheld by us. So we have a third party that will validate our privacy policies, which is going to be TrustArc.
TrustArc is a security firm that helps companies like ours ensure that we are compliant with government body regulations. And we've been a member of the TrustArc security program for the last 3 years. And they help audit our privacy policies and procedures, just make sure that we're Privacy Shield compliant. And they are actually the body that enforces that on behalf of the Privacy Shield certification program.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Isaac and Kelly, for sharing all of that with us today. I'll just give us a quick recap on everything we've touched on. I know it can be a kind of a drinking from the fire hose sort of situation, but ProsperWorks, especially as we continue to evolve and grow, we're incredibly focused on protecting your data. And we do that with things like daily backups, data encryption, vulnerability testing. We have internal controls around like who internally on our team is accessing user data. And we regularly review who actually is accessing that. And we use services like two-factor authentication to ensure that it is actually the person who is supposed to be accessing your data. We also give you as users ways to keep a high standard of data integrity in your system through things like read-only fields, password controls, required fields, etc. And you also don't have to just take our word for it. We are certified through, we're compliant with various laws such as GDPR, and we are certified by third-party services such as SOC 2 and TrustArc. And now we're going to jump into the portion of our webinar where we open up the floor for questions. There is a questions panel at the bottom of your screen where you should be able to send us questions. And don't worry if something, if we're not able to get to all of the questions today that we have, or if you think of something after this presentation ends, feel free to definitely email us at sales@prosperworks.com. Or if you're working with one of our partners currently, you can reach out to them and they'll absolutely be able to give you a hand. All right, so now I am going to pull up our list of questions. Just one moment. All right, so the first question that has come in is, will I know if my data has been compromised?
Yeah, we have a policy that we will disclose those as soon as we can. I think that it's the only responsible thing to do. When we discover of an incident, the first thing we'll try to do is find out how many people were affected and inform them as soon as possible while we work on mitigation steps.
All right. And the next question is, do you have, as a company, a privacy policy outlined? And if so, where can I access your privacy policy?
Yeah, so that is on our website and I believe it's located at prosperworks.com/privacy.
All right. All All right, next question we have here is, how do you handle cookies?
It's kind of a broad question, but there's a lot of different ways I can get. So there's been recent regulation about how cookies are handled for tracking users, and we are GDPR compliant in that we make sure to let you know when we're doing that. In other sense, we use cookies for a variety of different things to store session information to make sure we know who you are when you're logged in. So don't know if that quite answers it, but there's a lot to cookies.
And I might add something to that. So when you first log into our ProsperWorks.com website, in the last few weeks, there should be a new banner that will actually explain how we use it and what is our policy. And I believe there is a link at the bottom of our website.
All right, awesome, thank you. So next one we have here is, are all API calls encrypted?
So I guess it depends on the wording, but the transit of API call information must be encrypted. If you try to make an API call to us without using HTTPS, we actually won't serve it. So in that sense, the submission of data and the response of data is encrypted. The call itself kind of depends on whether or not the software the customer is using, you guys are using to call is being secure with the data you send to us, but in transit and in storage, it's all encrypted.
Okay, and then let's see, next question we have here is, beyond single sign-on for the apps you know about, how are you ensuring all the cloud applications and add-on integrations employees at ProsperWorks are using are secure and compliant?
Well, in general, if folks want to use a service, they have to pay for it. So that's the final test. But in general, we have a process for assessing vendors. And folks can't really use these services because they don't have a credit card to pay for them. And if they want to pay for them, then it kicks off a process where we evaluate them for security by asking for their audits. In the same way that you're asking us for our audits, we're going to ask them for theirs, making them fill out a security questionnaire that we take a look at, and making sure that they in general have a good understanding of security so that we're not exposing our data and your data to someone that we don't find trustworthy.
All right, I'm going to give just one more second before we wrap this up for anyone else to throw in any additional questions. Definitely call them out if you have them. All right, let's see. So we've had one more question come in. Has ProsperWorks ever experienced a breach?
Yeah, so we have not experienced a breach as far as we know. That is always the big, security joke. But if we had, we would actually had a response and actually have that communicated out to the affected parties and to whatever regulatory obligations we might have.
All right, awesome. I think it looks like that's all the questions we've had come in so far. As I said before, if something comes up later that you would like answered, don't hesitate to reach out to sales@prosperworks.com or the current partner you're working with. They can absolutely help you and get those questions answered. We are always here and want to make you, feel safe and secure when using our software. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.